Hey, this is Ralph, and in this video I want to go over a web page challenge that we had during a midterm exam. And basically, let's see, this is the online view of the finished web page. In class you had a picture example, so basically it's a little one-page website, kind of a home page for a bed and breakfast. Has a horizontal navigation menu, and basically when you hover over the links they get underlined. We've got a heading, little background image, a little logo off to the side. Some text describing the place, photograph off to the right there, and at the bottom in the footer section we've got the address for the location with a little bit of clip art mixed in. So we want to go over making this particular web page. Now you were provided some starting files, and I've got these off on my other screen, but basically I do have some starting files here. I've got the logo, little house that I'm going to use there as a logo, sunroom, which is the photograph down here. Of course, the page that I'm working on is yourlastname.html. That's the starting file. You were provided a starting HTML file, a background graphic to use for the page, and little tree PNG. I actually gave you two tree pictures. For this demo, I'm going to use the same image to be the background image up here, and also for the little tree down here. So I'll just use that same graphic. So these are the basic starting files, and you needed to modify the HTML and create a CSS file to get this look and layout that we're going for based on the finished example. And the finished example had some callouts pointing to key things that I want to refer you to. I've got some printed directions here, so I'll just kind of refer to those as I'm going along. So let's see, let me go ahead and just move this off screen here. Open up my text editor, and I've got my page open. This is yourlastname.html. This is the HTML file that I provided during the test, and this is where you started off with. And one of the first things that I mentioned in here is that you needed to fix some mistakes. I've got some mistakes in here. They're going to keep this page from loading up. So basically, if I go to my browser right now and I go to my page as it is, it comes out blank. So there are some mistakes to fix up. And you could run this through an electronic validator. Otherwise, you just kind of review it for some of the common things that we've seen so far. And I mentioned one of the very common thing, if a page isn't loading at all, you're getting blank, then the mistake or mistakes are in the head section. So let's just kind of review what I've got here. I've got a duck type definition for HTML5, HTML tag with language attribute, meta character encoding, title, and I'll go ahead and type in my name here just to kind of be a little bit more up to date. And here we go. I can see there's a misspelling in my closing title tag. Go ahead and take care of that. I've got a meta author. I'll go ahead and put in my name here also. And description. I didn't tell you to update the description, but I just like having that description meta tag in there. And I've got the end of the head section. I'm going to go ahead and put in a set of style tags. I'll just use some internal styles to control this page as opposed to an external style sheet. And there's the end of the head section. I start to get into the body of the page, and I can see that there is no opening body tag. So I'll go ahead and take care of that. Put in an opening body tag. I see that there's a container for the overall page. As soon as I see a big opening tag like this, an important one, I'm just going to do a quick scroll down, see if I can see the closing div for it. There's the closing div. I see closing body, closing HTML, so things are looking good there. Within the div, there's a header section. There's an opening header tag, closing header tag. Within that, there's a headline group, H group. And within that H group, I see a headline 1. Oops, we're missing a closing H1. And then there's a headline 2. All right, let me go put in the closing H1. And then I see a headline 2. After the header section, I see an empty nav. That's where the navigation menu is going to go. So I started you off with some of the HTML, but obviously you had to add a few things on your own. Then I see there's a section here identified as main. I see the opening section tag and the closing section tag. Within that, there's an article, opening and closing. Okay, I see that. There's a figure tag, opening and closing, and a figure is an image. So there's an image missing. This is where that sunroom is going to go, and the fig caption is in there for us. So there's the fig caption. So if you recall from that finished example, there's the image. It's going to be the figure, the sunroom graphic, and there's that fig caption right down there. Alright, and then after that I've got a generic paragraph with some filler text, some strong to make some bolding, Alright, so and then there's a footer section which is currently empty. That's where the address and the little baby trees are going to go for the bed and breakfast. So it looks like a few of the mistakes have been fixed up here, so let me go ahead and I've got it already saved. Jump back over to my browser and refresh, and now I've got the content. So really it's going to be a bunch of work with the style sheets. So now that we've got that part taken care of, let's go ahead and start working on some of the CSS to get this page looking the way we want it to look. Okay, so let's pop open my editor here. Okay, and like I said, I've got a picture of the finished product here. I've got some printed directions that were provided during the exam basic list, and I've got a screenshot that shows the finished website here printed out, and I've also got the little call-outs that I referred you to, and I'm going to just kind of hit these one by one. And with CSS, necessarily doesn't matter which order you start things in. So I'm just going to work from like the top down, or the first element, so the body tag and things like that. So back on my editor, I'm going to go into the style, and the first one I'm going to put in, even though it's not too critical, is I'm going to put in a reset rule. Not critical, but I think it's a good habit to get into, and I'll just put in a reset rule, set all margins and padding to 0. And then I'm going to start to knock things out here. And I see one of my first callouts says the body of the page uses a Verdana font and has bg.jpg as the background image. So I've got a background image that I can work with. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the body of the page. Font family, if I can spell here, Verdana. And I'll go ahead and do background image, URL, bg.jpg. Okay, so that'll take care of that. And you could have used subfolders. I encourage you not to use subfolders just for convenience when you're turning in your web page files and things like that. So I've got everything grouped together. And remember, here's my folder structure. I've got my HTML that I'm working on, and I've got the images related to it. And they're all grouped together in one folder. So just for convenience. Not a very big site. So that takes care of my first call out. And just to make things convenient for me, I'm just going to X these out as I kind of tackle them. Alright, so I've got that. Then if I move clockwise across here, the container wrapper for the page has a white background color, is 800 pixels wide, is centered horizontally on the page using margin. Okay, so I tell you a few things on here. So I'm going to go and manipulate this container, which is the next key element in my page. It's an ID, so I'll use an ID selector. The container wrapper for the page is a white background color. And I think I'll do a little EEE just to make it a little bit off-white instead of pure white. I wouldn't have taken off points if you did a slightly different color than me. You did have a black and white picture, so. And let's see, the width of that container is 800 pixels. And it's centered horizontally, so we can do that with margin. And in fact, that one I told you in the directions. I said use margin 10px auto to do the centering. So I gave you a few little tips or clues on some of the elements, and has an appropriate padding and border radius. So that one we're just going to eyeball, but I'll go ahead and put in a little bit of border radius. If I can spell it here, radius, 10 pixels. And I don't know what the padding should be, so I'll just go ahead and put in 10 pixels. Okay, so I've got a few elements now, and we should certainly notice something occurring with our web page. So if I jump back over to my browser and refresh, there we go. I can see the background image coming in, and I can see that my container has a white or just off-white background. It's got a set width, and it looks like it's horizontally centered. So I'm going to cross off that one. And there's basically, what do we got? There's 9 key callouts that I'm referring to, and I've just crossed off 2 of the 9. Okay, and let's see. The next one I'm going to look at is, it tells me, so the logo is located on the left side of the header section using float left and is 270 pixels wide. Okay, so I'm going to head over to the header section, and there's no image in here. So the header contains a logo, which is in this space, or going to be in this space, and it also has an H group with the headline text. And just as a reminder, finished example logo on the left side, and then we've got this big headline group of a couple, headline 1 and 2, taking up basically the right side, 2/3 there. Alright, so I want to work on that. So back on my editor, I'll go ahead and insert the image. Image source equals, and I have a logo.png. I'll go ahead and put in some alt text. And this is Pleasant Hill House. I have no idea if there really is a Pleasant Hill House. I just made that name up for this video. So I've got my logo in there, and it actually has some, it even tells me on here, the logo is located at the left side of the header section using float left. I could do this with internal styles. That might be pretty good. Or maybe I'll just give it a class or an ID. I'll do a class since I haven't done one of those in this video yet. And I'll go ahead and class equals logo. Sounds good. And then I can use my styles to manipulate that. Dot logo and float left, and I'm not sure, I'm actually using a different logo image than what I did in the test, so I'm not sure if these numbers will be exactly right with the directions, but I'll try it out, see what happens. 270 pixels. Let me go ahead and save that, jump back over to the browser, refresh. Okay, it's a little bit big, so I will knock that down to about 220. Maybe still a little big, but I'll not worry too much about this at the moment. At the end, after I've taken care of all the key elements, that would be a good time to go and fine-tune a bunch of stuff. So I think this is a pretty good setup. Let me go ahead and take care of the rest of this headline group, and then we'll take a break, and I'll set up another video for the latter half of the solution video. So actually that takes care of that call out. So there's 3 of the 9 taken care of, a third of the way through. And then I see the H group is to the right of the header section using float right. So now there's already a set of H group tags, and all that's taken care of things for me. Non-breaking space gives a little more bed. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not a non-breaking, that's an ampersand. I already had that in the HTML. So let's see, I'm going to go ahead and create a rule to manipulate this H group. And according to the directions, it's using a float right. All right, got that. What else does it say? The H group's width has been adjusted, and the text uses the Times font. So I'll do font family. Now I have 2 ways to do this. I could actually just do Times for a single word, but of course if you're doing a font name with spaces in it, then you'd put it in quotes like Times New Roman, something like that. And the H group utilizes a background image, which is that tree. So I'm going to go ahead and set that up. Actually, let's see how this is looking first, and then I'll put in the background image real quick. And I'll just refresh that. Okay, now I'm not worried about all this text up here. That's, that's bound to happen. I'm only focused on my headlines, and even though it wasn't mentioned in my directions, I see in the finished example that the text was also centered. And there's obviously a few ways I could do that, but I'll take care of it here. Text align center. Some of the points for the exam was simply just getting the overall look right. So, okay, so get that text centered. And I'm going to go ahead and put in that background image. So, you don't ever want to overwhelm, get intimidated by, oh, this isn't right, this text is wrapping around it. Well, I'm not working on that part. I'm only working on this H group, so that's where all my attention is focused right now. And usually the analogy I give in class is you don't go walking in the middle of surgery and think, oh, things are a mess. We're not done yet. You just have to keep your composure, stay focused, work on one thing at a time. Don't let yourself get distracted by step 5 when you're working on step 3. You'll get to it when you get to it. So right now I'm focused on this H group over here, so that's where I want to spend my time. Okay, so I'm also supposed to have a background image. And I'm going to go ahead and put in, let's see, it's the tree, so I'll do tree.png. Okay, now this is kind of a big graphic, and there's a few different things we can practice, of course, with background images, and we can do a bunch of different things. So one of which is background size. So I'm going to go background size, and I don't know what to really try. I don't tell you exactly what to size it, so it's just really trial and error by looking at it. I'll go ahead and knock it down to about 40%. Let's see how that looks. Okay, that makes the background smaller. I'm also going to get rid of the repeat. Background repeat, and we'll say no repeat. And let me go ahead and do background position. I'm going to do this 50%, 50%, which means 50% on the x-axis, 50% on the y-axis, horizontal, vertical, which should get this image centered within the H group. There we go. So now there's a tree in there. Actually, I'm okay with that for now. I'll probably fix a little bit of that in the fine-tuning stage, whether it's making the text bigger, which I think might be kind of nice, or the image smaller, or vice versa, or a combination of the two. But that's not too shabby. So I actually feel satisfied enough with this particular task to cross it off. And then before I'm completely done and ready to turn in my exam, I'll just go ahead and look around and clean up, make things bigger, smaller, adjust paddings, margins, stuff like that. So I think I'm at a pretty good stopping point. I've crossed off 4 of the 9 items on my list here, my checklist. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this video, and we'll pick it up in the next part.